His passion for community development led him to work as a facilitator for Love Life Groundbreaker program, a life skills educator in the after-school sector, and a cluster manager for the orphans of the Western Cape Department of Education, as well as the project manager for the Border Guide Chamber of Business. From 2016 to 2019, he worked as a spiritual care worker at the St. Luke's Hospice, a role which allowed him to bring all of his talents to play. Sonwabo loves for his palliative care and deep skill in working with the inherent of African indigenous context makes him a superb and creative end-of-life doula who has a deep wisdom and broad experience to share. So what Sonwabo is going to do is going to come and give us a talk, and sometimes towards the end of the talk we'll open up for questions and comments when he's done with his talk. So if everybody's settled in, I would like us all to welcome Sonwabo.
Let me greet everyone, and I am very humbled to be here and share with you the topic that it is so dearly in my heart. I've been given a topic that is about my African identity and my Christian faith. How does those two enables me to do my work as a former spiritual care worker? So that is what I'm going to be talking about today. First of all, I'm coming from a very deep-rooted African tradition. I was born in the Eastern Cape, a place called Fort Beaufort, in other words, a Bofolo. My grandfather was a man who married 3 wives. And my father is coming from the big house in isiXhosa kuthiwa indlu enkulu. So my father is an elder. Automatically, when my grandfather died, my father will take the leadership of the family. And as the only son from my father with 4 sisters, it was very clear to the family and to me that as I am growing up in the rural areas of Fort Beaufort, they were grooming me to take after my father. That is how I grew up. Everything I was doing it knowing that as soon as my time comes, I will be the leader of the whole clan of Amatete, Okhizama, Obuhoma, Oneneza, Omlanjana. So I'll be the one who's doing the rituals of the family as young as I was then. I will be the one who slaughter the cows when we have a ritual. So that was the life, the expectations of the family. And I came to Cape Town, if I still remember, still knowing that I had this responsibility that has to happen. And when I arrived at Cape Town in Masiphumelele, Fishhook, things changed drastically. Growing up in a traditional and in a very ancestral worship environment, which I still respect because that is me. I don't know if you understand. You cannot choose family. You can choose friends. So when I came to Cape Town, Brenda, can you please help me as I'm still talking? Find me PowerPoint, you know, technology. If someone can find me PowerPoint. As a pastor, you know, I normally talk and talk and talk. And I remember, like, then I decided to have a skill not to talk too much. Every time when I'm about to preach, I will take a smoothie, a sweet, and put it in my mouth. As soon as that sweet is gone or finished, then I will stop talking. And I bought a new suit. I love suit. And these suits come with buttons. They always come with buttons on the pocket. So I was preaching and I decided to take my suit, not knowing that I'm taking the button. So imagine what happened. Because of that, yes, that is it. Thank you. How my African identity and Christian faith enables my work as a spiritual care worker. So those are the expectations that were given to me. And by the grace of God, which I never deserve and I don't deserve, I became a Christian. An African man and a Christian. Because there is a conflict which is supposed not to be. When one became a Christian, you must deny your Africanist. And because of that, and you could even hear around South Africa or around the world, families are in dispute because one is a Christian or one is another religion. Then they can't sit together and work through things out. And my father was a bit disappointed because at my family, though they are going to church, they are not going to a very strong evangelical church, which is like a Salvanist church. So to them, when I came back to Cape Town and tell them that, guys, I'm a born again and I'm a follower of Christ, that started to squirrel and to have some conflicts within my family. But my mom and dad supported me through thick and thin. So I became an ordained minister of Baptist Church. And I still, few years ago, and I was introduced to palliative care by Dr. Rian Wendy. I didn't know about anything about palliative care. I didn't know nothing. All I knew was to preach Christ and Him crucified. I didn't know that there are space whereby all religion, all faith can come together for the sake of one person who is sick. And I got introduced and I was taught by Christina Nachman. She did a great job. I end up loving the holistic care of a patient. Doing spiritual care, especially in the ghetto, especially in the communities where we are working in the townships, it is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing. It is not an easy thing. What was the challenges when I was doing this great work, this kind of work? What was the greatest challenges I faced? Number one, it was the context. Context. It is very important that as you are working in such various communities, you bear in mind the context you are working in. You know, sometimes you will go as a team, sister, social worker, and a spiritual care worker. And you find a family, the mother who is dying in bed, the son, a teenage boy who's going through drugs, and a daughter who's not helping, who's staying away with his boyfriend for weeks, for days, who doesn't care about the mother. That's the context. That's the context you have to understand. And you just enter to this house, as much as you have your own pains, your own struggles, but when you enter to that house, you see that your pain is not a pain anymore. The living conditions. So the context is very important, that as you do this work as a spiritual care worker, you understand the context. You need to be sensitive. Very sensitive. Because as you are working, as you are doing this work, that challenge of context is important, and also the stigma. There's still a stigma around people who are dying with cancer, with AIDS, with sugar, diabetes, especially when we drive those cars of our organizations. Because sometimes when we drive those cars, they've got badges, name tags, and the minute the car that is written a certain name of an organization, the neighbors will see that it's happening there. People they don't want in our culture, in our context, to be known that they are sick. They don't want that. They don't want to be seen as weak. That's the context. Men in our culture, men in our society, they don't want to be associated with hospital, with hospice, with nurses. That's the stigma. And how do you deal with that? That's the challenges when I was still a spiritual care worker that I face on a daily basis. And for that, you need to be sensitive. You know, in our culture, Xhosa or African, kuthiwa indoda ayikhali. Man does not cry. Even if you go through some difficulty or some pain, and even if you can go right now to the hospitals, to the clinics, the majority of patients there are female patients. because men have that ego. So for me, it was a sort of a dynamic situation for me, becoming an African man and at the same time a Christian. Because sometimes we will say to people when someone is dying, or someone, when there's a death in that family, don't cry. Imagine, my mom just died, and the minister or the preacher will say to me, don't cry.
Be strong. Be strong.
It's wrong. It's wrong. So I had to because in my culture, I'm still a boy. As much as I will help that family, I will help that dying old man there. What I normally do, I used to do when I was working in Guguletu, Langanyanga, Philippi. When I had such kind of a case, I will go to Guguletu, find a senior minister who's older than me, who look respected than me, because you are lucky that I'm wearing even a jacket. I don't do this. I don't. I'm not a formal person, if I can say so. So I will go to an elder minister and tell him that I'm going through this. I have a patient, and can you come and help me so that the sister, the social worker, can be able to go through? Because in most cases, as much as I will say that when I'm closing, spiritual workers, irrespective of religion, most of the time, organizations, they don't take serious that department. Yeah, they don't take serious of that department. And our job is so much difficult because it takes a lot of you. It takes a lot of you. When I was still working as a spiritual care worker, I was going through a lot. I was going through a lot. I was dying inside. Not because of work I was doing, but after work. And you have to go to patient and you wear the mask. You have to wear the mask. So this is a great work of helping, of dealing with issues. And I used to say that I'm not against of the medical aspect or the medication, but there is no medication for soul apart spiritual care workers. You need spiritual care workers. So as I was doing this kind of work, I had a sensitivity for the context, the stigma, the culture. And also I had a challenge of patients who were very in denial, unresolved issues, and forgiveness and restoration of a relationship that I was involved. And I remember in Crossroad, there was an old man who was a truck driver. If you can go to my reports, you will find that. There was a guy who was a truck driver, going everywhere in South Africa. And he got sick. And he was ill, like he was not treating his wife in a good manner. And when he was sick, the wife was supposed to be the one who is taking care of him. And the wife was very angry. She was very angry in such a way that the wife didn't want to touch him. On the same street, this former truck driver have 4 kids to other women. So imagine a young guy like me coming to this old couple, and before they can resolve these things, have to sit them down. So these are the kind of work that we're doing in our communities. Very tough situations, very deep, and very, you can't even know that, how did you deal with that? And sometimes you don't even talk, because our work is not about talking. Our work is about being present, being there. So this is the kind of work that I've enjoyed. And the third challenge was being a spiritual care worker. I've mentioned this before. It's very imperative that as we care, we need to be cared. As we care, we need to be cared. Imagine a cell phone that is not being charged. How is going to happen? It's going to die. Die inside. Die slowly. Because this work, as I said before, takes a lot of you. Because we're dealing with people, as I said before, in our African context, death is something else. That is very important. You know, even if in our family there was a dispute, people were not talking. But when someone died, the family gathered together as imbumba yamanyana. Because we value, we respect death. I said before that in a Eurocentric culture, they wrote everything as a will. But in our culture, a spoken word of a dying person is more important than the will written by a lawyer. If your mother is dying in our culture and say, Mtwanam, my child, can you please reconcile with your wife? She's dying, and she will say to you, my child, can you reconcile with your wife before I die? There is no other way you will escape that, because we respect our dying friends, our dying parents. In our culture, that's something that you can't explain. People will go from Cape Town to the Eastern Cape. People will spend 2 weeks to prepare, so that when they are doing that final farewell, they will do it in dignity. In dignity means they will go deeper to the pockets. Because that is something else to our African culture. As much as we are undermined, even with our teams where we are working, but this work we are doing is a high calling, very important. So, what changes can be done in South Africa to make palliative care and spirituality more relevant to more people? I will say it again. Being sensible and flexible is the key in this work. And you don't impose your religion. You don't make converts. You don't change people. You care. That's your work. That's your job. I remember when I was still new in palliative care, working with an ex-colleague. She was a very strong Christian lady. She was a social worker. Very strong Christian lady. She couldn't understand me as a man of a cloth. Why I am so flexible. Why I am so welcoming. One of my ex or former patient who died last year, she was a Sangoma. And she said to me, Ndanam, my child, what you are doing in this daycare, it's wonderful. You never impose your faith, your religion, but you become all in all. Love everyone. Don't judge anyone's faith, religion. You know, people in the end of life, they will never remember your eloquence, your education, your money, your power, but they will remember your care. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sure, what a talk. As a person who used to work with people who are on their dying beds, having their last journey in this world, I personally know how much it feels to be. Someone said, I think in my work with Leigh, said, who takes care of the ambulance when it breaks down? And it's a very critical question about people who do this work and who takes care of them. They are not seen as a profession at some point. They are not seen or recognized in any other element as part of a job or a work. They're just seen as people who come in and out of communities because they have nothing to do. And part of that is also, I like what you're saying, Sonwabo, when you talk about you just come and sit. Just come and sit. You don't ask questions, you don't say to the person who's on their last days, this is who I am and this is what I've come to help you to go to the others. No, you just sit. And then you can sit for an hour or two. Then you walk out and you say, thank you for inviting me into your home, and you go home with no words said. And that person will tell you, I remember that man who came and sat with me on my deathbed because nobody comes and sees me in my room. So I want to open up for comments, questions for Sonwabo before he leaves. And I know that we're closing, like I said when it started, we're closing at 4:30. And if the conversation still continues, please stay. And if you feel it's time for you to go, don't feel you need to stay. We wanted to do a beautiful closure. Before I do that, are there any comments or questions? Maybe let me start. There's a hand. I will be bringing the mic. Yeah? Okay.
How
I once said that the Eurocentric, because our Christianity in South Africa or in Africa is so Eurocentric. The books, to name it, are from Europe. Everything we believe is from Europe. Then your question is, how do I mend the two? Number one, I will never deny my Lord. I love him every day. My family, they do their ancestral worship. When I am in the Eastern Cape, like other Christians who don't want anything to do with their families when they do such rituals, for me, I go and I sit there and I help when they need transport. I take my car and take the goats and whatsoever, do their work, because it's my family. That is how I do things. I'm still a Christian. I'm still an African, because in our culture, there will be days that you will need your own blood. There will be days that you will need your own blood. So for me, I don't mind who says what. I've been named a lot. I've been given serious bad names. African. And I'm proud to be an African Christian.
I think we should stay for two last comments or questions, if there are any. There is one. Gogo.
I just want to add to I just want to add to what Gogo was saying. We just need to demystify the myth. We do not pray to ancestors, finish and try. We commune, because as Africans we believe in communication. And therefore, just because someone has passed on does not mean they are dead. We don't have death. People pass on in transition. So we commune. And you know that you can never do anything on your own. You need another person to be able to do that. That's what we do. That's all. That is it. So I'm not too sure as well where this whole prayer to ancestors comes from, but I don't pray to ancestors. And when it comes to God, as Gogo has said, we've always known God. We will always know God. We know God as both a he and a she. We've got Nomkulana, we've got Umvelingangi, and we are so honored to honor both energies of this God.
Can you project? Do you need a mic?
Okay, first of all, thank you. Thank you for giving a realistic view of what end-of-life counselors and end-of-life practitioners and death dealers face out there. Because this is absolutely 100% true. Secondly, thank you. Thank you for adding a cultural aspect. Because we are a landminer culture. And we cannot have one way to talk. It's absolutely important. We are building a community around end-of-life. and then we stop the stigma that we have around all of these things. So, age-old tradition of African and Indian culture is end of life. We are not doing anything new, guys. We are not doing anything new. We put a fancy name on it. And I always feel like we're doing it upside down. You know, our most important moments are when we go out into the communities and we get taught. We get schooled very quickly on what we can and cannot do. And it's because of people like you that we get given that opportunity to stay here.
There was a professor in UCT, the late Rev. and Dr. Mazamisa. He used to say, guys, what is important? It is the ethics of balance. So I get disappointed when, you know, it's easy for us as Christians to throw people away from faith. I still remember, and when the other guy was preaching and he said, a dead body is a demon. A demon. So, and also you'll find out in a Eurocentric culture, when your son or mother or husband died, during her birthday, you will go to her grave with flowers. And my daughter, I miss you, and I love you. You are a Christian, but you are Eurocentric, or I might say you are white. I'm sorry to say that. But white people do go to their graves, even though they are Christians, and then talk to their husbands, honey, I miss you. But a black Christian is not allowed to go there. All the evangelical Christians will agree with me. And they will say those people on the graves are demons, which I totally disagree. In the Bible, they even took the bones of Abraham from other countries and go with them because they respect the bones, those who died. So we still have a long way to go. We still have a long way to go to balance things, to be critical, to know who we are, and not to apologetic of who we are and what we believe. Yes, I'm a Christian. Yes, I'm an African man. So what?